Uh, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our class, the communication skills class for professional writing skills. Today we are moving on with our subtopic of the mechanics of writing. We are going to have a look at punctuation. First of all, we have to know what is punctuation. It's important. Punctuation is like a organization. To punctuate is to organize. So I'll not go deep into the root of the word and so on, but just know it's organized. But when you are writing something, usually you need to understand how you can organize your work so that it can be readable or it can be clear for the reader. Whenever you write something without punctuation, it is very difficult for someone to read and maybe even comprehend. For writing to be readable and conceivable, we must learn how to use, not only how to use, where and when to use punctuation marks. There are so many punctuation marks. We have what we call the end punctuation mark and other punctuation marks. So we have the apostrophe, the brackets, the colon, the hyphen, the parenthesis, the period, the question mark, the semicolon, the virgule or slash, the quotation, and so many other kind of punctuation marks. Let's move on and see these punctuation marks. Yes. Number one, we are going to start with the apostrophe. Apostrophe. What is the apostrophe? Apostrophe is it's like a comma. But this comma is not below the word. It's not on the right, below the right side of the letter, but it's above the right hand side of the letter. It is written above, like this letter here. The apostrophe indicates the possessive case of nouns and indefinite pronouns. Possessive means ownership. For example, the boy's mother, Sarah's house, the boy's mother. This means the mother belongs to the boy. So we put apostrophe S when it is singular. Sarah's house, the same, you see, that's the apostrophe S. And when it is plural, usually like when there are many boys, we add the S. Take an example. Of, let's say, we want to write, we want to say boys as in plural. Boys. We put the apostrophe there like that. We put the apostrophe there after S. The boys. Let's say the boys. No, we go back to the text. Say, I want to capitalize the boys' mothers. The boys' mothers. So here, the apostrophe, not like for example, when you are in singular, we say, in singular, we write the boy's mother. In plural, we write the apostrophe after S. In singular, we write it before S. So make sure that you understand that very well as well. So when we go back to our lesson, we have another example. When do we use apostrophe? Marks omission of letters in contracted words. Contracted words. For example, didn't, o'clock, telephone. We mark that there is a letter that is omitted when we are using contraction. There are so many ways of contracting. I think you should go and search different forms of contractions. There are many words we usually contract in English. An example for this, we can say, for example, we have the word do not. When we contract, we write don't, like that. Another word we can say, she is a girl. She is a doctor, not a girl. She is a doctor. When we contract, we can say she's a doctor. We often use them in spoken English. So she's a doctor. That's contraction. In formal writing, we rarely use contraction. So make sure that you understand that as well. The next have been interrupted as well. So the next I want to get back to the normal screen. Yes. Sorry for the interruption. So the next part would be we are very sorry for the inconvenience. So the marks omission of letters in contracted words, date, o'clock, telephone, and so on, contraction. Marks omission of digits in numbers, digits in the numbers, like a class of 83. Yeah, some numbers you omitted, you put apostrophe there. This is often used to form plurals of letters, figures, punctuated abbreviations, symbols, and words referred to as words. Iggy, your plan is good, even if there are lots of buts in it. You understand? Buts in it, ands in it, plurals of letters, figures, punctuated abbreviation, symbols, or words referred to as words. Your plan is good, even if there are lots of buts in it. You put apostrophe because when you add only when you add only s, the sentence will be rendered fragmented or a wrong sentence. So this one included there are more than one but in a sentence. That's what you can even say ands in it, so's in it, is in it. Two of the junior faculty have PhDs. So your plan is good, even if there are lots of buts in it. Two of the junior faculty have PhDs. So make sure that you learn how to use the apostrophe. It's very important when you are writing. We're going to be using it regularly. The next part is the brackets. In most cases, it's known as the parenthesis. The parenthesis. When do we use brackets? To add the clarification and information. To add clarification and information. The witness said he, the policeman, hit me. The one who hit me, he was a man and he was a policeman. So who is that he? If we want to explain more about the character of that he, we put the word the policeman in the bracket. Someone can say that, but teacher, there is a repetition of the subject in a sentence. No, this is for clarity. That's why it is put in the brackets. In the brackets. So make sure that you be aware of that. The two teams in the finals of the first FIFA Football World Cup were both from South America. So for more information, what teams are those? Uruguay and Argentina. We add that information in the brackets. It shows that you want to explain more, clarification and more information. Set of phonetic symbols and transcription. This is like open your dictionary and see the transcriptions and symbols that are phonetic, even the pronunciation to try to come up with such symbols, such words, and so on. No, that I can't put there much emphasis. To add missing words, it is good question. So if the word is missing, you can put it in brackets. A good question. Yeah, and then to add editorial or authorial comment, they will not be present. My emphasis. So when you are like marking or doing proofreading, you use brackets to indicate what must be worked upon. And the next one, to modify a direct quotation. To modify a direct quotation. He loves driving. So if you want to rectify this, like he loves driving, if you want to make corrections, the original words were, this is a quotation, but it is not clear who said it. You understand? He loves driving. It's clear now here in quotation. Brackets, I love driving. We are trying to clarify this statement. So we put it in bracket to rectify or to modify direct quotations. For nesting, square brackets can also be nested using square brackets like these ones here. Using square brackets like so the next one is a colon. A colony, what's a colon? A colon, these are two double dots, like two periods, one over the other. What do we use them for? Colonies introduce a clause or a phrase that explains, illustrates, amplifies, and restates what has gone before. A colony introduces a clause or a phrase that explains, illustrates, amplifies, like elaborates more, or restates what has been gone before. This is an example. The sentence was poorly constructed. Then want to be more clear, to elaborate more, to explain more. It lacked both unity and coherence. Let's say the Prime Minister, let's say the elections. Let's use this example here. I want to share a screen. Last time when I shared a screen, it was a disaster. I'm going to try it one more time. I'll try to see how I can remove this. Yes, I will use a lasso, and the lasso is this rubbish here. It's not rubbish. So I will come here and draw a table. We are looking at the sentence. I mean, like using a colon to explain, to illustrate, and amplify or state what has been said before. This is our white screen. We can't say the Prime Minister. Let's not use the Prime Minister. We can't say the minister was was expelled, was expelled, was expelled, was expelled because of incompetence. Incompetence. So in a sentence, for more information or for more emphasis, we can say he could not, he couldn't enact policies and meet the expected the expected the expected performance You understand? So we want to explain more on the incompetence. The prime minister was expelled because of incompetence. He couldn't enact policies and meet the expected performance. So that's our sentence there. So we can say like that as well. So now I'm moving back to our screen. So we say the sentence was poorly constructed. It lacked both unity and coherence. So it shows you we are explaining more about why the sentence was poorly constructed, giving more details. So also the the colony, which are two dotted periods, directs attention to an opposite. For example, he had only one pleasure, eating. He had only one pleasure, eating. He knew only one game, football. So we say a colony also introduces series. For example, 3 abstained, semicolon, England, France, and Belgium. Do you understand? We offer 3 subjects: procurement, governance, and project management. That's clear, and it's very easy. Now, separates the titles and subtitles. For example, Battle Cry of Freedom, the Era of the Civil War. I have a book that I wrote. It's called Functional Writing, a simplified vital life skill. Functional writing or a simplified guide. You see, the biggest title is functional writing, then the subtitle is a simplified guide for writing. So that is a colony. We are moving on to the next. We are still on the colony. We say colony introduces lengthy quoted materials set off from the rest of a text by indentation, but not by quotation marks. By indentation, but not by quotation mark. What does it mean? Let's say for a direct, let's move to the example instead of explaining these terms. I quoted from the text of chapter 1. Separates elements in a page references in bibliographical and biblical citation and in set formulas used to express ratios and time, e.g. John 2 stroke ratio of 3:5 or 8 a.m. So in most cases when you are quoting, like I quoted from the text of chapter 1, separates, you see the amount of the size of the quotation we are trying to make. That's why they say introduces lengthy quoted material. So not only the length, but it shows you where you quoted from. where you quoted from. Where you quoted from. So mark that one. And the next one follows salutation in formal correspondence. In formal correspondence. Igi, dear sir, you put a semicolon, ladies and gentlemen, and that's also a colon. I beg your pardon, colon, not semicolon. So next, punctuates headings in memorandums and formal correspondence. Igi to subject. I think you see even on when you are writing emails, when you are writing letters, a reference, application letter, you separate the heading with the formal correspondence, like RE, like that, then you write the heading of the letter in applications and so many other kinds of letters. So we shall have a look at that, how to use them practically. The next, and then one of the most commonly used punctuation mark is the comma. When do you use a comma? We use a comma between items in a series or lists. For example, egg, coffee, tea, sugar, milk, eggs, butter, salt. My favorite sports are football, rugby, swimming, boxing, and golf. You see commas? This is a list of football, rugby, so we separate them with a comma. Number 2, use a comma between 3 or more adjectives or adverbs. 3 or more adjectives, I think you understand adjectives, and I think you understand adverbs. Adjectives modifies nouns, and adverbs modifies verbs. I like the old brown wooden table, separated with a comma. This adjective describing this table. He bought an old red open-top Volkswagen. Still adjective separated with a comma. There is a rule when you are writing adjectives. I think it's grammar. You have to look into that. Number 3, for 2 adjectives, use a comma where you could use and. For 2 adjectives, use a comma where you could use and. It was a short, simply film. It was short and simply film. Instead of using and, you use a comma. It was a short, simply film. Next, use a comma for numbers over 999. I think numbers over the thousands. When we reach thousands, we use a comma. Igi 1000. After 3 digits, we count from ones, tens, thousands. So put a comma and then put the number there. So 1000, we write it like this. And this is the 75,050.75 cents. So we put a comma before these digits. Don't consider this. This is the cents. That's why you see dot. So the whole figure is here, and these are small like decimals. So we call them cents in money. You should learn more about money. Comma still, use a comma for addresses, some dates, and titles following a name. For example, Los Angeles, California, Mogadishu, Somalia, Kampala, Uganda. Between the city and the country, you put a comma. November 4th, you put a comma, 1998, but I prefer to start with the date, like a 4th November, comma, 1998, full stop. When you're writing letters, use a comma before or after direct speech. Do not use before or after direct speech. Do not use a comma for a reported speech. Iggy, he said, I love you. He said, I love you. So he said, comma, I love you, full stop. Or I love you, comma, he said. We use a comma here. But remember, when this is a capital I, because pronoun I is always capitalized, he told her that he loved her. This is the reported speech. This is the direct speech. This is the direct speech. Yeah. This is the directed speech, and this is the reported speech. So make sure that you learn how to use a comma. Number 7, use a comma before coordinating conjunctions. For and no, but, or, yet, and so to join independent clauses. I think you understand coordinated conjunctions. For example, he didn't want to go, comma, but he went anyway. She is kind, so she helps people. In most cases, with so we don't use a comma. With so, but in others, like he came and they talked. He came and they solved the problem. So it came, comma, he came. Let's make the sentence complete instead of incomplete. Yeah, he came to class, comma, he came to the office, comma, and they talked to each other. So that's one. Use a comma for parenthetical elements. For example, Johnny Miles. Who is Johnny Miles? We are setting off other complete sentences. Johnny Miles, these are complex sentences. You should learn more about complex sentences and how to write them. In most cases, we don't use a comma if this word has no implication. If you remove it, Johnny Miles is the chairman. Johnny Miles is chairman of the company. So here we put who, because if we remove it, the sentence will be rendered vague. So that's why I put it. John Miles, comma, who is chairman of the company, comma, is quite old. And, comma, my wife's brother, comma, cannot come. So these statements put a comma like to render someone reading have a breathing space and to avoid what we call vague statements or run-on sentences. So make sure you learn more on how to correct fragmented sentences, run-on sentences, vague statements, choppy sentences. Sometimes when you overuse the comma, sentences become choppy, chopped, short, which is not also good in most cases. And even in writing, use a comma after an introductory part, e.g., rushing to catch the fish, comma, he forgot to take his phone. By evening, we were getting worried. So by evening, make sure comma there. By evening, comma, we were getting worried. Full stop. Sentence adverbs. Adverbial, we call it, or like for example, however, comma, Anthony did arrive. Anthony, comma, however, did arrive. There are so many like therefore and so many other kind of verbs. Adverbial clauses. For example, if I win the lottery, comma, I will buy a castle. So if you don't start with this adverbial statement, this one we call them dependent clause or subordinate clause or adverbial like a conjunctions kind of stuff. Like, so if we start with any kind of adverbial clause, so you must set it off with comma and then you add, because it is incomplete, so you have to add on a complete statement, a complete sentence. So when you start with it, you put a comma and you add a complete sentence. But when it comes after, you don't put a comma, like here in the next sentence. I'll buy a castle if I win the lottery. Number 12, set of contrasting and opposing expressions. He changed his style, not his ethics. So I think you understand that. Number 13 separates a tag question from the rest of the sentence. A tag questions from the rest of the sentence. You studied the question tags in grammar, isn't it? And today, like that, it's fine. It's a fine day, comma, isn't it? So number 12 is used to avoid ambiguity that might arise from adjacent words. Contradiction. To Mary, comma, Jane was someone special. To Mary, Jane was someone special. Punctuates an inverted name. Punctuates an inverted name. Morton Williams. Morton William. So the next one is follows the salutation in informal letter. For example, dear Mark, comma, very true yours, comma. These are closing complementary may be clause and salutations. We usually put a comma instead of full stop when we are writing letters. So make sure you learn that in advance because you're going to be seeing more of that in the coming lessons. We move on to the dash. The dash is used to show a pause or a break in meaning in the middle of a sentence. My brother, Richard and John are visiting Hanoi. It shows a break in meaning in the middle of a sentence. My brother, Richard and John are visiting Hanoi. In the 15th century, when of course nobody had electricity, water was often pumped by hand. So those are choppy statements, I think, but correctly written. So like you can like understand that someone instead of like reading some statement which might not be clear, like when you are giving a speech, you need to pause at a certain time. Like my brother Richard and John are visiting Hanoi. It is kind of not appealing. So that's why we use this dash. My brothers, Richard and John are visiting Hanoi without using full stops and commas and so on. So, and the next sentence as well shows that. Number 4, to show an afterthought. Afterthought, maybe after stating something and you think of another things. I attached the photo to my email. At least I hope I did. The next one, introduce a list. Don't forget to buy some food, eggs, bread. So here the dash works as a colony. And then to show the letters or words are missing. They are really fed up. Like in news, like letters, they usually use they usually use they usually use like if someone says a bad word, there is a commonly used word in America which is F-U-C-K. So they eliminate those words and put some dashes or stars. So it shows these omitted words. And number 10 often precedes the attribution of a quotation. My foot is on my native heath. Then they put a, maybe there are some other words that were being said. So then you add the name of someone who said those words. And ellipses. Ellipses, these are dots, dotted dashes. What sometimes you see them in the document. What do they indicate? Number 1, they indicate the omission of one or more words within a quoted passage. When you quote a passage and you omit some words, we use ellipses. For example, in the little world in which children have their existence, dash, 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 that's why you call them in most cases. There is nothing so finely perceived and so finely felt as injustice, justice. So there are some words which were supposed to be here and we are eliminated. Maybe they are irrelevant to what information someone might need to be passing on to whichever audience. Number 5 usually indicates omission of one or more lines of poetry. When ellipsis is extended, the length is extended, the length of the line. So I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree. There is a line omitted here. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. Yes, Kalima. So indicates halting speech or unfinished sentence in the dialogue. I would like to, that is, if you don't mind, sometimes when we speak, there are some words we don't mention. You are like, like you skip some words. So we use ellipsis. And the next one is exclamation mark, which usually indicates strong feelings or raising voice in speech. Help, stop, and so on. He shouted at him, go away. Yeah, there is emotions or surprise or something that's shocking and so on. Many interjections need an exclamation mark like hi, what's new, oh, that hurts. So these are what we call interjection, wow, wow, and so on. A non-question sentence beginning with what or how is often an exclamation. How pretty she looked in that dress. It's that kind of emotion. So a non-question statement that brings, in most cases, whenever we begin to say these are question statement, like questioning words, WH questions. So when we start them with a non-question statement, we end with exclamation mark. Informal writing, met John yesterday, he's so handsome. Met John yesterday, he's so handsome. That's like we were texting and so on. Remember, don't be late. Even the statements are not complete. Sentences are not complete, but we use them in informal writing. In most cases, when you write such statements they can be grammatically wrong or missing someone. Like remember, don't be late. There is a missing subject in that sentence, so it can come out to be something which is incomplete. So be mindful of that as well. The hyphen. This is the hyphen, that's how it looks like. To join words to show that their meaning is linked in some way, like the bookcase, less horse. Yeah, they are linked in some way. The shoelace, the shirt buttons, yeah, the TV cable, and so on, to make compound modifiers before nouns. The blue-eyed boys, these are compound modifiers. Two, 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 two words acting as an adjective. A blue-eyed boy, the well-known actor, the well-known actor. Prefixes ig or inclusive, ex-wife, self-control, non-English. Learn more about prefixes when writing numbers 21 to 99 and fractions. 21 to 99 and fractions. Like 21, you see, put a dash in most cases, but sometimes it's not necessary. And we put a hyphen and 2/3, like that, to show that a word has been broken at the end of a line. E.g., the director's request that a more convenient time be arranged. To show that, like, for example, when you end the margin, you put to show that there is a continuation of the word. Suspended compounds, this rule applies only to 12, 13, 14 year olds. Instead of using this 12-old, 13-year-old, 14, you understand? So we put a hyphen, suspended compounds. Like this word applies to all of these numbers. So we only put it at the last number, and others we just put the hyphen like that. The next one is the parenthesis. The other one we saw were the squared brackets, and this is the parenthesis, one we usually use in English. Explain or clarify. Tony Blair, the former British Prime Minister, resigned from an office in 2017. Actually, they almost do the same role. I refer you back, you'll check. Indicate plural or singular. So please leave your mobile phone. It might be one or two. So not sure. You add S at the door. Add a personal comment. Many people love party. Then about me, I don't. Put that in a comma. It's not called for. Define abbreviation. The matter will be decided by the OAC. Then you put it in the comma. And the rules are, once you write it the first time, the next time you can write only the abbreviation. Enclose numerals that confirm a written number in a text. When you write numbers, like the river will be made in 30. So 30 is written for emphasis or for clarity. in brackets in 30 days. So that's also important. The next one is a period. One of the most important end punctuation marks. Number one, it ends sentences and or sentence fragments. So for example, I went to the store for groceries. Not bad. This is the fragment. Fragment is a complete sentence. Abbreviation and contraction: Doctor, ED, Joe, Junior, Mr., Ms., Miss, Mrs., and so on. Is normally used with an individual's initials, like when you're writing here, initial TSE, idiot, ABAS, Moko Junior. So like that is used after numerals, outline letters in a vertical enumeration, e.g. required skills are like here when you're listing, like a shorthand, a typing, these are full stops. Or when you are numbering a list in outlines. It's clear. Next one is the quotation marks. Title, how and when you use them. Title or name of a book, film, or ship, etc. Titanic is in a sentence, you write it, you give it a special status, like by putting their quotation marks. The third chapter of Treasure Land is entitled The Black Spot. So this is the title listed. We use a quotation marks around a piece of text that we are quoting or citing, usually from another source. In Cambridge Encyclopedia of English Language, David Crystal argues that punctuation, plays a critical role in a modern writing system. This is quoted from Cambridge Encyclopedia, the words of David Crystal. So that's why we put them in quotation mark. You have to learn more on sourcing and to avoid plagiarism and kind of paraphrasing. We shall learn more on that. Use quotation marks around dialogue or direct speech. It was moonlight night. James opened the door and stepped into the balcony, followed by Mary. They stood in silence for a few moments, looking at the moon. Then Mary turned to him and said, "Do you love me, James?" Yeah, these are words, quoted words in a dialogue, direct speech. Again, more on quotation mark. Use quotation marks around a word or a phrase that we see as slang or jargon. Learn more. Check what is a slang. A slang or a jargon. Yeah. The police were called to a disturbance, which in reality was a pretty big fight. Use quotation marks around a word or a phrase that we want to make special in some way. Note that sometimes we use italics, so we want to give some special attention to this word. That's why we put it in quoted marks instead of quotation marks. So learn more, read more, understand more. It's clear and self-explanatory. The semicolon, another one here, but not often used. Many people don't know how to use it. We sometimes use a semicolon instead of a full stop or a period. George likes coffee. Mary likes tea. Instead of a full stop or a period, we use a semicolon. In most cases, to avoid choppy sentences, whereby when someone reads that statement, it doesn't need more of pausing or more of stopping. Every mark you have has an implication when someone is reading the statement. So George likes coffee, Mel likes tea. And it's like sentences like almost there is no need of pause, but it needs a small pause. You did your best. Now let's hope you pass the exam. You did your best. Now let's hope you pass the exams. Use a semicolon as a kind of super comma, super pause. ABC Investments has offices in 5 locations: Keston, London, Brinton Hove, and Oxford, Cambridge, and Manchester. So here there are words that also have commas in it. So to separate the list, that list has commas in it, we usually use semicolons. And then links clauses joined by a conjunctive adverb, such as consequently, furthermore, however, therefore, as a result, so many others. Speeding is illegal. Furthermore, it is very dangerous. So we use a semicolon before these words. Remember, this one must be small letter, not capital letters. Then we set it off with a comma, like that. Learn more on conjunctive adverbs. Separate alternatives, like this is a slash. When do we use a slash? To separate alternatives. In a letter, you always see that, dear sir or madam, slash madam. Mary will eat cake and stalk of fruit. Replaces the word to or. So I think this is not necessary. We just say Mary will eat cake or fruit. Slash fruit, yeah. To or and between related terms that are compounded. In the May stroke June issue, instead of saying in May or June, or in May and June issue, so use stroke like that. The fiscal year 2009-2010, learn more about that. Divide elements in dates, divide numerators and denominators in fractions. Offer expires on 5th, 10th, 2011, 2/3, like that. It's clear. Set of phenomena, phonemes, and phonemic transcription. You go to the dictionary, you will see that. And the next one is the question mark. Simple and clear. It is a direct question. How are you? Because the writer's ignorance or uncertainty. When someone doesn't know exactly the statement, you put a question mark. Here, Lord Byron, English poet, 1998 to 9. Now it means he doesn't know whether he was born in 1788. That's why I put a question mark. Not sure. Not sure, and then go on. So, for more reference about punctuation mark, you can visit theenglishclub.com, writing stock punctuation, Merriam-Webster Collective Dictionary, 10th edition, 1996. You visit it and you see more about punctuation. So I would like to thank you very much for your time. We look forward to the next topic, which will be out after one day. That is letter writing. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.